DARPA's created in 1957-58.
I can't remember what it stands for, but basically DARPA is our advanced weapons.
Yes.
It's our advanced technology weapons, correct?
Defense Advanced Research Projects
There we go.
Agency, another mouthful, DARPA. It began in 1957 after the Russians launched Sputnik. We got caught by scientific military surprise. That was like a bad thing. Herb York becomes its first science director. The reason Sputnik was so threatening, it was a satellite, the Russian satellite, the first one orbiting Earth. The reason it was threatening was because it takes a rocket to get a satellite into space. If you can put a satellite in space, pretty soon you can put a nuclear warhead on that rocket and hit the United States. That was 1957. That's where everything changed. And so Herb York wanted to know in seconds and minutes how long it took for that ICBM to get to the United States. So he hired the smartest guys in the room, the Jason scientists, about which there are extraordinary many conspiracy theories. It was a 2-week-long program. SecDef, like the highest-ranking people in military nuclear command and control, got together and gamed out these different scenarios, according to Professor Bracken. NATO was involved. NATO wasn't involved. Tactical weapons are involved. Tactical weapons not involved. China gets involved. And what Bracken said was no matter how nuclear war begins, it only ends in nuclear Armageddon. And his exact words was that everyone left the war game very depressed. The nuclear war conundrum is so complex and tightly wound. It began with the generals and the admirals at the Pentagon in the 1950s working from an idea that nuclear war could be fought and won, which itself is insane. The original nuclear war plan against the Soviet Union that I write about in the book was going to kill 600 million people.
Wow.
600 million people. How can you have a plan like that and not call it mass extermination? Our nuclear weapons are surprisingly analog, meaning they are not digital, okay? So, for example, I learned in reporting the book that our sub-launched ballistic missiles guide to the targets by star sighting, Shawn. A little panel opens, and they use the stars to guide to the target. There are other systems in place, and this stuff is very classified. But what is leading is like this ancient technology that like our hunter-gatherer ancestors used. Nuclear weapons, because they happened before the advent of the digital age, there has been a concerted effort to make sure they remain analog so that they can't be hacked. And these are assurances that I have gotten from Cyber Command. You're just taking somebody at their word at that point because the documentation is not declassified. How does AI fit into the mix? If there is indeed a giant gap on purpose between AI being able to access nuclear weapons, that is one lane of security.
What does it look like if we're hit?
A nuclear bomb explodes with a flash of light, of X-ray light, that is so powerful and hot, it is impossible to comprehend. It is 180 million degrees. That's the temperature at the center of the sun times 5.
Really?
And so the thermonuclear flash sets everything on fire, depending on the size of the bomb. In the scenario that I write, it's 3 miles out.
Is that a fact? Is that the biggest?
That's not the biggest bomb, but that is a fact. When I write about these horrific details about what happens to people in third-degree burns and wind ripping skin off people's faces, 9 miles out, limbs being ripped off, the sucking motion that happens, the blast wave that's like a bulldozer. When I write all those details, those are not out of Annie Jacobsen's imagination. Those are sourced from primary document called The Effects of Nuclear Weapons.
Does that mean North Korea's nuclear weapons would also have to fly over Russia?
North Korea's nuclear weapons fly over Russia and China, but they do not have the same technology that we have, according to my understanding of the technology, to see neither China nor Russia in real time the way that we see any ballistic missile launch anywhere on the globe.
If they do have somewhat of a capability and North Korea launches a nuke at the U.S. and it does have to fly over China and Russia, at least in our response, they would have some context and they could go, okay, we just saw one fly this way. Now we're going to see one head west. Mm-hmm. And so it wouldn't be 100% in the blind.
Mm-hmm. That is a possibility.
Now, with that being said, you're also, there would have to be some type of communications. And if we don't have communications, if we can't even get our counterpart on the phone, then
So nuclear winter theory was originally written in 1983. Carl Sagan was an astrophysicist who became very famous in the 70s and 80s, and then he died tragically of cancer. But he became a real proponent, an anti-nuclear weapons proponent. He and a number of people wrote this theory called nuclear winter, where they modeled out what would happen after the fires stopped burning. So you have, 2,000, 3,000 nuclear weapons that have gone off. And the modeling on that suggests that after all the fires stop burning, and this is state-of-the-art climate modeling, updated since the 1983 nuclear winter theory, the fires will loft into the air 330 billion pounds of soot. Goes up into the troposphere and blocks out the sun. 70% of the sun's rays disappear. Hence nuclear winter.